Hey, welcome to another episode of Making Billions. I'm your host, Ryan Miller, and today I got a special treat for everybody. Today I got my special friend, Dana Lambert. Dana is the founder and CEO of Andera Pharmaceuticals. They started back in 2015, I believe. Is that right, Dana?
Yeah, you got it.
Awesome. So Dana, tell me a little bit about yourself. How did you get into this business? What was it that drove you to start a pharmaceutical company out of all things?
Yeah, that's I'm happy to go into that. Thank you so much for having me, Ryan. I'm really excited to be on here. So I started as a hospital pharmacist. I was also a healthcare executive. I ran clinical research programs, quality and safety initiatives. And in doing that clinical work, I was dealing with some of the most sick people in our hospitals. So people that were in ICU, battling, serious infections, battling cancer. And I was responsible for managing their drug therapy. And it just became really clear that the drugs and interventions and medications we have in our healthcare system right now just aren't cutting it. And then I started looking at science and research. So as a pharmacist, I mean, you're pretty aware of drug science, but then there's an even deeper level of research. Then there's like the hardcore pharmacology research that happens in labs. This is before drugs are even discovered. I started looking at the science of certain natural medicines. And it was clear that, hey, that there's some possibilities here. Like if somebody really digs into this and develops this further, we could have better medicines for people. I could potentially bring something to this hospital and to healthcare systems around the world that help treat people, help treat them safely and effectively treat very serious conditions. So, I mean, I loved what I did as a hospital pharmacist. Absolutely loved it, but I felt like I wasn't able to really bring my creativity and my whole self to it.
So would you say that you felt like maybe there was something calling you?
Absolutely.
You felt that, to put it in more romanticized terms, almost destiny was calling, or something greater. Maybe was it that kind of, was it this inner turmoil that, or
100%.
Yeah, there was something inside of you that just wasn't getting out.
Yeah, it was an inner voice that was happening, and I should back up and say that I started at university and business school, so I've always known that I'm an entrepreneur. I'm somebody that negotiated my way out of doing half the work in grade 12 business school,
Nice.
but I always found science and like chemistry and biology super challenging. So I always thought I wasn't smart enough to go into pharmacy and understand the science of medicine. So I was like, business school, like I can do that. That's easy. I got in and I'm like, you know what? I'm passionate about medicine. So became a pharmacist. Then I'm like, okay, like it was a calling from within that was like, how can I make the greatest impact? Like what can I do that's just like in my highest excitement? Like if I can do something with my life, like harnessing all the training and knowledge that I have, like what can I do to better medicine? Like what can I do? And obviously it's going to take so much work, so much learning on my part. I mean, to develop a drug is probably one of the most difficult endeavors you could take on. It's the most regulated, highly complex industry on the planet. So I completely left my career as a pharmacist. I applied to go back into the Faculty of Pharmaceutical Science at UBC, where I got my pharmacy degree from. They have a world-leading research program. And if you want to go back, you can get a PhD in pharmaceutical science research. I had no idea how to do research. all I knew was I wanted to learn. I wanted to explore this research that was coming out on natural compounds, natural medicines, and how we could develop them into better therapies. So somehow they accepted me into grad school. They made me start as a master's student because I didn't have any training in research. They let me advance into the PhD program. But I didn't go into that program to get a PhD. I had no interest in becoming a professor or an academic. I went into that program to network and learn how the pharmaceutical industry worked, and learn how to develop drugs, and get world-class training in hands-on research and learning how to actually develop drugs in a lab. So I was about a year into my PhD, and then at UBC, there's this fantastic, this is UBC Vancouver. There's this fantastic like business development course called Lean Launchpad. And I was like, okay, I want to make a pain therapy for people, like a safe, effective pain treatment. How do I launch this venture? So yeah, I just started out getting curious about how the industry works. And it turns out Vancouver in particular is just a mecca of talent in the biopharmaceutical space. So I got placed up with some of the best mentors you could imagine. I was very, very fortunate in that respect. So I got a better understanding of how the biopharma industry worked, what the typical business models are for early stage biopharma companies.
Okay.
And then I was also in the lab doing research at the same time.
That's amazing.
So that's the backstory.
Wow.
That's what happened, I guess, before Andera launched.
Yeah. So this was pre-Andera.
Pre-Andera.
So my goodness, as I listen to you, I'm like, this is a deep well. We could go so many directions off just that little bit. So you've got such a wonderful experience and story that I want to really make sure the world hears this. So with that being said, you mentioned one thing I want to touch on is you said, which we believe on this podcast, is you wanted to get into understanding. You wanted a network and you want to understand the business. So we obviously believe in reputation and relationships, as the episode before you, we talked a little bit about that, and the importance of building your wealth and your income is directly related to those two. Now, when you mentioned that you were at University of British Columbia, UBC, and did you find an incubator or an accelerator, some type of startup program that got you into that business? Maybe talk about a little bit of that early start and entering that program, and how it kind of evolved, and was it helpful? Was it not? I mean, tell us everything.
So UBC has a great entrepreneurship program. It's just called E, like the letter E, at UBC. They've just got a tremendous panel of very experienced industry experts. And so I started out doing a program called Lean Launchpad. So the person who's running the course was actually one of the founders of Sierra Wireless, and he shared his story with us about how they almost failed and everything, nothing was working, and they only figured out how to make their business work just by chance. And it was essentially their last ditch effort. But miraculously, it all turned around. And so it was like, look, guys, businesses do not go how you envision them a lot of the time. And you have to adapt. And anyways, they paired us up with great mentors. I ended up meeting people that had run pharma companies, biotech companies, some based in Vancouver, some based in the US, people that had been like the head of marketing for major pharma companies, like multinational pharma companies. So to get that kind of exposure to these people, and at first you feel like an idiot talking to them, because you're just this person that just has this kind of naive vision that I
Yeah.
want to develop a pain drug. And they're just kind of like, honey, you have no idea what you're getting into. Like, you poor thing. Hope you got thick skin, because you're going to get your ass handed to you.
And did you get your ass handed to you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, a few times. So I'm assuming, in that program. So it's a very common experience. I've heard this from other colleagues, that going through incubator programs are sometimes the word accelerator is good. This thing is like catching a lightning in a bottle. And
I should just make the distinction that I did not get my ass handed to me through the UBC entrepreneurship program. That was not helpful.
Yes. Thank you for clarifying.
The turmoil that I encountered after launching the company that was super challenging. The UBC entrepreneurship folks were just nothing but supportive, and I ended up meeting tons of mentors, some of who I still work with today.
Okay, so the ass handery happened after you graduated the program, and you spread your wings. Great. So walk me through. You mentioned a little bit, and I do want to get into the evolution of the company, but you mentioned one other thing, and that is mentors. Now, it sounds like that program was really good with mentors, but walk me through, just talk about some of the mentors that, is that something you believe in? Sounds like it is, but maybe walk us through that experience of finding a mentor, holding on to a mentor, keeping them interested in what you're doing. How has that helped you become a founder, a CEO, an extraordinary, dynamic person that you are? Walk us through how that was shaped through mentorship.
What was so amazing to me was how generous these people were with their time. I mean, they didn't have to be talking to me. They had already, they're super successful people that, that they're genuinely just trying to help you because they genuinely want to see someone else in the industry succeed. And, I wouldn't be where I am today if they hadn't taken the time with me. But, I think that the best mentors for me have been the people that have been completely real with me, very realistic.
Yeah.
And not sort of painted this, rainbow, beautiful picture of what this industry looks like. The best mentorship was the most challenging to be mentored by, to be told, like, you're going to have a really hard time raising money. You don't have money. You can't fund this yourself. You can try, but most early stage companies fail.
Yeah.
Are you prepared to deal with that? It can take up to 10 years or much longer to develop a drug and get it to a point where Pfizer or AstraZeneca is going to care about maybe wanting to do a deal with you.
Yeah.
It's probably one of the toughest industries on the planet. So it was a reality check. Right. And it was like, Dana, if you're prepared, like, if you want to do this, look what you're up against. Do you really want to jump into this? It's daunting. And I so appreciate the mentors giving me that info, because not only did they tell me, what I'm in for, they helped guide me through it. And a lot of the time I just reached out to them if something was challenging, or I didn't know what to do, or I just wanted to hear their thoughts on something. And it's just been super helpful.
Right. So would you say then, so finding a mentor, I think our listeners would be very interested in the ways. Now, we've talked about one way, was that, I believe it was an incubator program.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on that incubator program, were there other avenues that you've found helpful in finding a mentor that you think maybe our listeners would appreciate?
You know what? It wasn't just the one incubator program. It was like that was sort of like the seed once you've planted the seed and you've met your first few set of mentors, they're going to introduce you to other people. Those people are going to introduce you to other people.
Right.
So it's just a matter of realizing that, it can start small. You can talk to people that, are highly experienced, and maybe they can't necessarily help you with exactly what you're doing. But I think it's really important to be open to maybe there's some other ways that these people are going to help me. And that could be introducing me to others. So it's amazing. You never know who you're going to meet. And it really is a small world. And I think that the biggest piece of advice is just to stay open and try and meet as many people as you can that are in the same field as you.
Right on. Yeah, no, like we say, the 2 R's, your reputation, relationships. When you understand that, then things start to expand. Would you agree that's how it played out for you?
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So, I've noticed that, so now here we are today, Andera, right? We see this. I see your website. I don't have the view from the inside that you do. So maybe, here we are in pre-Andera days. Walk us through how, now that you've gone through this incubator program, it sounds like you had mentors and coaches challenging you, saying, "Hey, are you sure? Because this is no easy task." But making billions is not easy. Anybody who signs up or listens to a podcast like this isn't looking for the easiest path, and neither did you. 13 years of school, is that right? PhD, the whole, you went for it.
Yeah, a total of 13 years.
Yeah, and that's formal education. Obviously, you haven't stopped learning, and we're certainly fortunate to have a great mind like yours on the show. So talk about Andera and how it started, like the actual Andera, not the pre, but here we are. You're just graduating a incubator program. You got a mentor in hand. How did you go from there to where you're at now?
Sure. Yeah. So what I did was came up with a business plan of the technologies that I wanted to develop. Okay. They involved certain cannabinoids, which are the active medicinal ingredients derived from cannabis. That's what I did my PhD research on. Mm-hmm. So I launched Andera while I was also doing my PhD. My PhD supervisor wasn't the most pleased with it, and then bless his heart, he tolerated me being an entrepreneur and also trying to navigate my way through the program.
All right.
But he was supportive, and it was great. So the way Andera started was a really old family friend. I was walking with him on a beach one day and just told him what my vision was. At that time, there was research coming out that suggested certain cannabinoids could be very helpful for treating things like advanced cancer and pain. Mm-hmm. And getting into the PhD program, I started learning about all different ways of formulating IV therapies. And so I had this amazing plan of how I wanted to use cannabinoids to treat cancer. And this family friend, Mike Wall, was like, you know what? I want to support you. I know that you're an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. He's known me since I was born. Great family friend. And he's like, okay, if you want to do this, Dana, we will get a group of investors together. We'll organize a presentation and let's get you a first seed round of capital raised. So that's how we started in 2015. So we're developing therapeutics for pain and also doing another type of technology called biosynthesis. Mm-hmm. And I won't get too far into the weeds on that. No pun intended. We don't actually
I see what you did there.
Cannabis, we work with purified cannabinoids that come from a lab, so we don't actually touch the plant.
Yeah.
This is a cannabinoid pharma company, not a cannabis company.
And if I can just chime in for the listeners who are not from Canada and haven't heard the news, I believe in 2017 it was federally across the country legalized, not just for medicinal, but also recreational. So the stigma is very quickly running away, at least in Canada. And then there are other select areas. So Canada, I would say, would be one of the forerunners in embracing all the things, including the research in cannabinoids, and you're certainly one of them leading that charge.
Well, I mean, actually, the legalization has had absolutely no impact on pharmaceutical development and research. If I want to order in cannabinoids into one of our labs, I still have to apply to Health Canada for a research permit, the exact same permit that I had to apply for when I was doing my PhD back in 2014. So, I mean, this has nothing to do with cannabis whatsoever.
Sure.
The regulations are completely different when you're talking about purified
compounds. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It's important to make that distinction.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to clear that up because we've got listeners all over the world, so we wanted to make sure that they understood at least the Canadian national culture around that is not only legal. I mean, you're right; it doesn't affect the medicinal side.
I totally support.
We're pretty cool about that. Yeah,
I'm all for it. I think it's great. But
yeah, it's a step in the right direction for sure. Now, you mentioned in your story, and thank you for that. Now, where we're at now is you mentioned. And you skip past it, so I'm going to bring you back. You had a mentor or a colleague who you've known for a while, and you said, "Hey, I'm going to get a bunch of people together, and we're going to raise your first round." Let's not skip past that. That's amazing. That's a big thing that a lot of and I've gone through it too. A lot of our listeners are kind of wondering, how do you raise capital? How do you get your first investor? How do you get your first institutional investor? So maybe walk me through a little bit about, like, truly bring me into that moment where you were talking, raising capital. I'm sure you had to say something to someone eventually on that raise. How did that go? What did you learn? How did that help? Walk us through that first investor.
Yeah, well, it was a group of 8 investors, and at that time, I had an amazing mentor that had worked with big pharma. What was a director of Andera. I'm super grateful for having him as a mentor. And one of the things he taught me was when you're raising capital, at least in the biopharma space. Investors are investing in 3 things. They're investing in the technology, the opportunity. So what's the commercial potential of this?
Okay.
And your team. Those are 3 things. So
nice.
You have to be able to convince investors that you've got those bases covered. So you could have the most brilliant, life-saving, life-altering, miracle drug in the works, but if there's no commercial opportunity, if it somehow is not going to fit in with medical practice, or doctors are not going to prescribe it, or there's some regulations that would prevent it, well, forget it. There's no business opportunity for it, and it's not going to fly.
Okay.
And if you don't have the right team, so your investors are also betting on, do you have a team of seasoned people that have done this before and been incredibly successful? In my case, I was so fortunate that I did. I mean, I didn't have them on board as employees because obviously I couldn't pay them their markets.
Yeah. You didn't have any money. Yeah.
But holy smokes, those people pledged that, hey, put me on your slide deck. I'm an advisor. I will help you with this. So I engaged them all as consultants, agreed to pay them what I could. And we still have an amazing team. So really it was a very focused business plan. There were very specific technologies we were embarking on developing. We already had some proof of concept. And it was, it was a moment in my life I'll never forget when I was able to present to this wonderful group of people in Cowichan Bay on Vancouver Island. Just the most amazing group of people that got together, and they all said, like, we believe in you. Like, we want to support this. So we were able to raise enough money to get off the ground. I was able to acquire a research space at UBC. We had our first major R&D project up and running, and then it failed. So someone else's patent that was pending got issued. It got awarded, and it put a hard stop to what we were working on. It was unanticipated that patent would get awarded. I have one of the best, someone who's considered to be one of the best, if not the best, biotech patent lawyers in Canada. And he's also renowned by patent lawyers in the US as well as being among the best. And he's like, that there's a very, very low chance this thing is going to get awarded. But it did. This other patent came down, and it was like, well, that's it. We could try and file disputes. We could drag it out in court, but we don't have the money to do that.
Right.
So it was, at that point, we had burned through more than half the capital we had. And it was like, okay, at that point, I was completely devastated that I had spent those shareholders' money on something that was not moving forward.
Wow. And how did you deal with that? So in that moment, you said, use the word, we failed. And, I'm totally going to put words in your mouth, but by paraphrasing, I think Nelson Mandela says, and I teach my kids this, is I never lose. I either win or I learn. And this is, your story is reminding me of this. Now, in the moment, you probably felt like you lost something, right? You're feeling guilty, all of these feelings. And maybe many of the listeners here have felt that way. Maybe not through pharmaceutical, but it's a very familiar moment. So talk about a little bit about that feeling of failure, and how did you get back on your feet to persevere and continue to develop your company, even though you felt like shit. All these horrible ideas are going through your head about investors' capital and people trusting you, and probably one of those dark days that a lot of companies need to go through, and you did. How did you come out the other side?
Well, I felt worse than shit. It was devastating. And when I started the company and raised that capital, in my mind, I was going to get those people like at least a 6x or like a 50x return on their money. Like that's what was happening. That like there was no other option on the table for me. So when that happened, it was like so out of the blue and unexpected. And I felt this personal responsibility. I'm like, shit, I've got to pay all these people back. Like, I can't just like wind things down and like tell them that they just like realized a 60% loss. And, but ultimately I just really checked in with myself. I started exploring other career options. I'm not going to lie. I was like, obviously I've failed. This isn't working out. It wasn't meant to be. I've accepted that. But it's like, is this really what I still want to do? And the answer was yes. And I essentially gave the option to all of the shareholders. I organized a meeting and just said, look, guys, this is what's happened. This is where we're at. Here's a plan that I propose to move forward with, but I want to leave the option open to each and every one of you that if you just want your what is remaining of your money back, if you just want your money back and to walk away, I will write you a check and give you your money back. And each and every one of them just said, no, Dana, just keep going.
Press on. You had
So,
some good venture capitalists behind you.
oh, I can't even tell you how grateful I was on
Hmm.
that day, and how grateful I still am. That gave me the boost that I needed to go,
Yeah.
like, okay, like it's okay for me to continue.
So how much that brilliantly said. So as you tell me, you had a moment there that you said, "Is this something I still want to do?" And the answer was yes, I believe is what you said.
Yeah.
And I think that's great. So I want to drill in it because I've experienced similar moments myself, and I'm going to probe a little bit. So in that moment where you do this gut check and say, "Is this something I still want to do?" How much, and this is a little leading, but how much did your original vision help you in that moment?
It was, you know, it it was just like an honest check-in, and it was
Hmm.
just like throw the original vision out the window.
Okay.
Like, I'm totally open to, maybe this is not what's in my best interest. Maybe this is not. Maybe I can make a bigger impact somewhere else. Um, can I like apply myself and benefit the world in some other way, in some other form? And really, I was completely open to something else, and it was just this very deep feeling that no, I just haven't gotten there yet. But I still deeply felt that my greatest good that I can bring forward with my life is developing better medicines for people. And
Yeah.
I've accepted that it's such a tough industry. So, and like you said, Ryan, like you, like you're just going to learn.
Yeah.
It's not a failure. It's a learning opportunity. And at the time, I didn't. It was like a crisis at the time. It was a life altering, terrible thing to go through. But in hindsight, I learned so much from it. And so we pivoted. I ended up meeting even more mentors, got even more support for what we were doing. Um, and then I ended up getting involved in looking at antimicrobial properties of cannabinoids. And then we had
Hmm.
this major discovery happen at UBC in this lab across the street from where I was doing my PhD.
Hmm.
And it was just like, wow, okay. Like, we found that we developed a formula where we can make an existing antibiotic work 500 times better than it was working, and completely overcome antibiotic resistance and potentially save people's lives
And
and
it,
treat untreatable infectious disease that's claiming lives all over the world. And so it was
well,
like, oh my gosh, like, I can't believe this discovery happened. And I truly think it's because I was open to it. I was open to that caliber of invention or medicine or technology come to me,
mhm.
because in my mind, in my vision, that's what it was. That's what I was going to be doing. I was going to be bringing this into the world. And so somehow, I tested a whole bunch of things in the lab, but somehow, this microbiology student approached me after a lecture, because at the time I was teaching drug development in the faculty.
Mhm.
And he said, we're screening compounds that might be effective against this superbug called VRE. Do you know of anything that might help? So I said, well, dude, like, that there's a bit of research that suggests that certain cannabinoids and this other class of natural compounds called terpenes, some
Mhm.
research to suggest that they might be antimicrobial. I don't know. So I packaged them all up and handed him a little baggie of cannabinoid samples. And a month later, they got back to me and said, we need to talk. We need to
Oh.
talk. Like, the results are so good that we think that something must be wrong. We must not be
Oh.
doing the experiment right, because what we're getting is so unbelievable. And it is truly unbelievable how effective certain compounds are. Anyways, we ended up filing patents on it. It's incredible. But after that, Ryan, and we ended up discovering this other topical formula that could help with wound care. So we're also working on that. But then, capital was running low, and then I was experiencing like a personal family tragedy, and it wiped me out. So I graduated. I had just finished my PhD. And then I was just so, going through a lot of grief and emotion. And it was just such a difficult time for me. And our money's just about out. And I only have so much time for Andera to formally license all of these biopharma technologies from UBC. And there's conditions on that. I have to sponsor further research at UBC. I have to prepare a full commercialization plan. I have to meet all these conditions to license the technologies. And I'm like, I don't have any gas in the tank. Like I can't do it. Wow. I just can't do it. We're basically going to go bankrupt. How on earth am I going to raise more capital? And at that time, there was a huge downturn in the cannabis industry. So even though we're a pharma company, because we're working with cannabinoids, you just get branded as, oh, you're a cannabis company. And so many investors had experienced major losses in the cannabis space. And so if you're anything to do with cannabis, like nobody wanted to talk to you.
Yeah.
So it was like the perfect storm that I was like, okay, no, like this is so done. Like I can't raise capital under these conditions. Personally, I have family matters that are more important. I need to attend to that first. There's no money left. Like it's just not going to fly. And so again, I was just like, okay, it's not meant to be. Like, is there something else I should be doing instead? Like, Dana, did you really think that those drugs are actually going to work? Do you really think that like your lab discovery is actually going to translate into some life-saving therapies? Like what were you thinking? Like just give it up, like find something else to do. Go back to being a pharmacist. Like you're taking the hard road here. Like, so again, I was ready to give up. And and then, my original shareholders who are some of the like, I love them to death. They're some of the most amazing people. They just came to me and they're like, what can we do? Wow. Do you need more money? Do you need, I will write you a check to continue. I'm going to introduce you to a friend of mine that would be very interested in investing. I'm going to set up a presentation. And I was just like, oh my God, like, can I even handle this? The amount of grief I was going through was just devastating. Yeah. I couldn't even think properly. It was so hard. Wow. So it's like all of your shareholders are at risk of losing everything. And it's just like you're going through this terrible time in your life. And it's like, how am I going to pull through and make this happen? But
so how did you? I think me and all the listeners, because I mean, I obviously know you did, but I don't know how. So walk me through. Here you are, right? You got, as we say, life's got you on the ropes, right? You're just taking punches left and right. You're feeling it. You're wondering, is this over? Is this it? And the last time you said, I haven't gotten there yet. And that sounds like that was the thought that turned it around for you. And I'm a big believer. I call it the doctrine of yet, which is just a fancy way of saying, just every time you doubt yourself, put the word yet on the end. And it's a nice little psychological trick to turn it around. So I picked up on that pretty quick instead of saying, I haven't gotten there. So I haven't gotten there yet. And often, so here you are, like, I'm so into this story. So here you are, life's got you against the rope, family pressures, financial pressures, business pressures, even relationship pressures, because you got investors and all these people. And then where did it all turn around? When did it begin? What was the moment where it started to change in a different direction for you?
I have very, very close friends and family and mentors to thank for
Mm.
getting me to look at the fact that, like, hey, you could still do this, like that this could still be a possibility. And essentially I did some soul searching. I ended up enrolling in like this personal development course that a friend recommended. I didn't want to do it. I felt like shit. I was like, I don't want to do this stupid course where I have to, but I was like, you know what? It might help me even a little bit. And I could really use it right now. So let's see what this does. And it was an amazing course. And I just got really clear that this whole possibility of better medicine is still mine to create if I want to. It's still there. And like, yeah, I'm going through a rough time right now, but it's going to pass. Just take little steps. Just what do you need to do to secure that license to that IP from UBC? Let's just focus on that. How much money do I need to do that? I just wrote out a budget, came up with a plan, somehow wrote like a 60-page business plan, and like got input, talked to people. It was even hard for me to talk to people at that point, like other professionals in the space, but I did. And then one of the friends that one of my shareholders introduced me to, I presented to him and one of his colleagues, and I've been chatting with them for a couple of weeks about the company, and then he agreed. Him and one other contact, mine personal friend and contact, put in more capital, and I just couldn't believe it. I was like, wow, we're gonna live to see another day, and we actually may be able to make this life-saving treatment. And then, you know, things just built from there. So that little bit of extra funding allowed us to license 3 amazing patent pending biopharmaceutical technologies from UBC. It allowed us to move forward. It allowed us to carry out additional research at UBC, de-risk the technologies further, and then it was like, holy shit! Like, these things actually work. Oh my God.
So
like we had strains of bacteria from Vancouver General Hospital that were completely drug resistant. Resistant to, like, not just the last resort, but the backup drug that they used as a last ditch effort. That these bacteria, like 4 different strains of bacteria, and these certain cannabinoids were just wiping them out. Not only that, but when you pair them with that standard of care antibiotic, there's this amazing synergy, and it takes this antibiotic from not working, and then it works 500 times better than it ever did. So it's just this, and it's so rare to see that type of true synergy play out in medicine. It does happen, but to this magnitude, it was just like, oh my God. And our patent is published. It's in the public domain. Everyone can look it up and see all these cool graphs. It probably doesn't mean much to the average person, a non-scientist looking at it, but it's really compelling data. And so now, after having raised further capital and after having very positive patent examination reviews of our patents, we're moving forward even more and doing the next phases of studies. We've got like amazing proof of concept done, and so we're on track to develop an injectable antibiotic that's designed as an adjunctive treatment to add on to the existing standard of care antibiotic that's no longer working to cure people this multi-drug resistant superbug infection.
Wow.
We're also developing a line of anti-infective wound care products as well. And we're also launching an oncology cancer research investigation at UBC with the Canadian chair of cancer research as well. So it's it's come a long way since 2015, and it's super exciting. And I'm super grateful for the team that I have, and the amazing scientists and researchers and all the colleagues I have that are way more talented at this than I am, that I rely on for their expertise. It's all come together.
I love that. That's such a great story. And, it sounds like Dana is as bright and as dynamic as you are. It sounds like you knew something very early on. And if there's a theme to this, it's the power of mentors, and they come in all shapes and sizes. And it was your mentors who, some of them came from the venture capital industry. They very much, the good ones are known for doing that, is really helping you with whatever you need. And so here we are. I picture you starting out in this incubator program, bright-eyed, still in your PhD program, and you just wanted to learn and get to know. And you did. And some of that learning came from failures. And you picked yourself up using the doctrine of yet. You didn't call it that. I certainly did. But either way, the effect is the same. As you just said, it's not yet. And you held on to your vision of what you wanted to do. You mentioned this before. We didn't really go into it. But you kept talking about, not once did you talk about the money you would make. It was always the investor's capital. And you often, I've noticed in your story, is you kept talking about the impact that you wanted to make. What was that impact?
That's what this is all about. It's really about helping people that are suffering, and bringing better, safer medicines to them that is going to cure them, or significantly help them heal from something terrible. I mean, our lives are so precious. We're only here for a limited amount of time, and there's too much tragedy, there's too much pain, there's too much suffering. It's just heartbreaking. Being a former hospital pharmacist, seeing it firsthand. I mean, that this is about being able to help people heal and offer them solutions to pain and suffering, to help alleviate that. And if we can do that even a little bit, even if it's only for one disease, I mean, that's what this is about.
Absolutely.
And it's like that's why I do what I do. That is it. There's also, a tremendous financial upside to it. And I've had some of the most remarkable financial mentors in helping me, assess the financial strategy of the company, and including you, Ryan. You've been a phenomenal coach and mentor for me. And I'm super grateful for that.
You're welcome.
Super honored to be able to work with you.
Yeah.
But I mean, what I want, first and foremost, we're here to make better medicines for people.
Yeah.
But I want to give my shareholders the most massive, ridiculous return they could ever imagine. So everything that I do is geared towards getting these drugs approved and saving people's lives. But I know that doing that, the side effect of that is going to be a huge amount of financial abundance. So I see financial success and making billions as being just a really cool side effect of doing something greater.
That's right. And doing it, as I hear you talk and tell that story, you're very kind, and it's also been my pleasure to work with you as well, and sit from my seat and watch your success, like so many other people who've supported you and continue to as well. But the word that keeps coming to mind, well, there's a couple things. The first one is I've always believed that the world needs more healers, and that can be in many forms. Spiritual, physical, emotional. There's enough of the other side that the world needing more healers. And I would certainly refer to you as one of them, is you found your way. And my guess is that that is what helped you to get up off the floor over and over and over again. And like you said, making billions, let's not lose sight. This is certainly something that we want to do. And that's kind of the topic of the show as well. But being a healer, making billions off healing is so admirable. I would say you're making it the right way. I don't know if there's a right or wrong way. I mean, yes, there's a line, but it's so inspiring to see people who not only look at their emotional satisfaction or maybe the impact more than the income without actually neglecting the income. So you're saying, yes, both are important, but it wasn't, I got to try one more time because I really want to make this income. It was saying, no, it was my impact that mattered. It was my impact that pushed me forward. It was my impact that got me going. And it was the impact of being a healer that made me be honest with that first time where you had to stand in front of your investors and you were probably thinking, boy, they are going to take a pound of flesh out of me. And they didn't. It was that authenticity. They knew you were a healer, I'm assuming. And they said, no, we know your why. Yes, we're venture capitalists, we're investors, we invest, and yes, we've run the numbers. We know what kind of upside there is. And you mentioned 50x, and my experience is that's not unreasonable. But it was your impact. It was your why. It was who you were, which puts you at the top, in my opinion, as a very effective leader. People followed you not because of the money, but because of who you were and what you stood for. Would you agree that helped you along the way to get up off the floor, to bring investors into your world, was just representing something deep and authentic?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for that, Ryan. That really means a lot. Yeah, I really do think that people wanted to step up and invest because they could see the impact, and I'd like to think that they could sense my authenticity in
Mm-hmm.
truly wanting to help people. And it's those kind of investors that I'm grateful for every single day.
Yeah.
It's all about working as a team and trying to achieve your ultimate vision. But every single decision you make, I mean, my shareholders are always in my mind with me.
Yeah.
In making each and every decision. It's like this is not just about Dana trying to develop therapies. That this is a business. This is a company, and we're making amazing, revolutionary, safe, and effective treatments that can save lives. But we also stand to have a significant upside, and I want to make sure that I maximize that return for everyone that's invested, because they deserve it. They took a chance on me, and I want to not only show them that, hey, we can develop these drugs. Thank goodness I have experts on my team that have done this so many times before. We can do this. And yes, we're also a kick-ass business and an amazingly well-run company that knows how to bring in the financial gains as well.
Yeah, you know how to make a buck. Absolutely. So one final question I have for you then, Dana, is if you couldn't leave any of your money behind when you died, but you could only leave the advice that you've gained to your loved ones, your kids, everyone you love, what advice would you give them about money, business, impact, anything in place of money?
I think it would be lead with your heart. It's not about purely going after financial success, but each and every one of us has something so special that we can bring to the world. Just being ourselves. And you owe it to yourself and the world to find that. Find whatever it is that is truly beautiful and valuable and amazing that you can bring into the world. And really it comes from your heart. So that, yeah, that's your most precious asset that you can bring forward. And I really think that, like, the greater your love, the greater your impact that you're going to have on the world. And I think that, generally speaking, the greater the impact and the greater the benefit you offer the world, the more well off and successful you're going to be, and then you're going to be taken care of for what you give.
That's absolutely brilliant. Spoken like a true healer, Dana. Well, Dana, thank you so much for being on the show. It was always a pleasure. I loved going deep into your background and your experience, and I can't wait to watch your success as you grow into making billions. Well, that's enough for me, everybody. If you have any questions, you can always go, I believe it's andira.ca is where they can find your company. If you've been impressed, this is the Dana leading with her heart. So focus on your impact and lead with your heart. Follow the doctrine of yet. You will get there in your quest of making billions. Thanks again, everyone.